I'm your host, Jedi Master Garrett K. Jones, and we have a special Star Wars themed top 10 list to kick this month off right. Hello there. Welcome back to The Right Way, where we talk book recommendations, author interviews, and creative writing tips. Before we launch into this month's top 10 list, I have a few announcements that I think you should be aware of. First and foremost, today is Free Comic Book Day. For those of you local to Hanford and Kings County, I will be down at DJ's Collectibles from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. with copies of all 5 books in my series. Now, if you haven't had a chance to read the archives of Essene Koran, I would love for you to come down and to get a copy. Secondly, I have all new dates for my writing workshops going into the summer, starting with Saturday, May 20th, which is just in 2 weeks. I'll be hosting a dialogue writing workshop focused on how to develop strong dialogue for your characters that reflect their personalities and make you look like a stellar author. Now, if you're a Kings County local, come on down to the Hanford branch of the Kings County Library. I'll be there from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. The cost is free, and all you need to do is bring a notebook and a writing tool or a tablet computer if you want to go a little bit more high tech. Lastly, if you'd like to become a channel supporter, one of the coolest ways that you can do that is by purchasing some of my merch on Teespring. By clicking on the link in the video description, you can find a collection of different items from shirts to phone cases to posters. Check it out, and if you get something, be sure to rep it on social media and make sure to tag me at GKJ_publishing. That way, we can collaborate. Since last summer, I've had the pleasure of co-hosting a Star Wars podcast called War of the Stars alongside John Mark Tolley. But just before the holidays, we had another co-host named Will. But if you're familiar with his unboxing work on YouTube, you'll know him as Darth Tuba. So here he is, providing us with his top 10 Star Wars book recs in honor of Star Wars Day. These are the books you're looking for.
Hello out there. My name is Will, aka Darth Tuba, and I run a channel on YouTube, Darth Tuba's Star Wars Unboxing Show. And I've been asked by Garrett Jones to provide you with my list of my top 10 favorite books. Okay, now, when I was given this assignment, I was not 100% sure if this was top 10 books in general, top 10 Star Wars books. In any case, I'm a huge Star Wars fan and a Star Wars collector, as you can see. So I'm going to go with my interpretation of this, which is the top 10 Star Wars books. Now, of course, anybody who's been around knows that there's a ton of Star Wars books out there and lots of different types of books. There are comic books, there are novels, there are, making of books and all sorts of different types. So for me, I tend to gravitate towards the more making of documentary style books. Not to say that I don't like the books that come out that are story-based. I'm a big fan of the Timothy Zahn Star Wars trilogy that came out in the 90s. I enjoyed the Han Solo and Lando Calrissian, standalone books, Splinter of the Mind's Eye back in the 70s and 80s. So those are fantastic, and I love them. But if I were to list my top 10 books, you will see that there is a theme that falls mainly into two categories. One is making of, meaning things that talk about how the movies were made, and the other one would be about collecting. So I will give you, a little bit of a rundown of my top 10. Okay, I'm not going to put these. Well, I guess in some ways it could be in order. I'm kind of going semi-chronologically here. Okay, but these are my top 10. Okay, so number 10. Okay, we're going to go with this one. This is The Art of Star Wars. This is a book that came out back in the 70s, okay, and it was essentially one of the first art books, 1979 to be specific. And looking through it, there's just a ton of Ralph McQuarrie art. It also includes a script, and back in the day, this is the first way you could actually get the script to Star Wars. It includes all sorts of imagery, not only Ralph McQuarrie concept art, but also, as you can see, storyboard art, that type of thing. It is fantastic. It's something that I actually flipped through so many times that I broke the binding on it, and I actually had to buy a second book the one that was a little bit better. But it is really a fantastic thing. Edited by Carol Titleman, and just fantastic. It even includes some comic strip from the back of it. Back in the day, folks, before Star Wars was a huge undertaking thing that happened these days, that was in every realm of pop culture, these kind of things were really all we had. So I always have a fondness in my heart for that. All right, moving on to number 2, we're going to go, and again, this might not be in chronological, I think it sort of is, but you'll see. We've got this book. This is now getting into the more collecting side of things, Star Wars from Concept to Screen to Collectible by Stephen J. Sansweet. Now, anyone who knows who Stephen J. Sansweet is, if you don't know, he is now the most revered Star Wars collector in existence. He's actually his collection is in the Guinness Book of World Records. Rancho Obi-Wan it's called, and he was always a big-time collector. I've actually been able to communicate with him via written letters in the past, and he's written tons and tons of books, all documenting collecting in Star Wars. And this book is fantastic because not only does it talk about the idea of concept, the title says it all. It talks, again, it gives you some Star Wars concept drawings, concept ideas, and then going into what it was like in the movies, then coming out of there and going into the collecting and the collectible standpoint. So some pretty cool things like the ever elusive plush Jawa, of course, the not so elusive X-Wing fighter figures. Okay, some concept things. Of course, he has some concept 12-inch figures that were never released, that type of thing. So, fantastic book. Okay, I'm not sure if these books are still available. I think a lot of them have probably been out of print, but you can probably find them in used bookstores, things of that nature. Okay, moving on to our next one. I guess if I'm we're counting down 10, 9, 8. This was one of the first big book expensive books I purchased. And it's called Star Wars Chronicles by Deborah Fine and EN Incorporated. And essentially this is kind of it's got a nice slipcover. Let me get it out of there. And this is essentially a book all about the saga concepts. Okay, just phenomenal artwork, phenomenal new takes on it. I believe this is a 1997 book. This is actually something that was done in Japan, I believe, and then they kind of translated it for this country, if I'm not mistaken. Great picture, beautiful, never before seen, reference photos of creatures and characters. Really, really cool. in the sense that, anybody doing cosplaying or wanting to do their own model making or anything of that nature, this was a great resource to use. So just a fantastic book overall. As you can see, I tend to be more about learning how the movies were made and a little less about story driven. Not that I don't like the stories, I do. I have plenty of favorites in that. But this is kind of where my entertainment reading goes to. All right, so the rest of these are, well, most of them. Let's go to number 6. 10, 9, 8. I'm sorry, number 7. This is Star Wars costumes. Now, there are actually 2 versions of this book. There's the original trilogy version, and there's also the prequel version. I enjoy both books equally. I'm just right now showing you this book, so it's kind of a tie, but I kind of see them all as the same book, and it really talks about, first of all, it's really, really cool. You can even see from here, like this, it just gives you these really great patterns, and it really shows you how they broke down all of the costuming from early concept design to what kind of fabrics they used to even where they sometimes got the fabrics from and the weaponry from and the the leather from. I mean, it's what people don't realize, especially about the original trilogy, was that they often had to scrounge up stuff from lots of other places. So a lot of things that have already made. So that's why there's so many outfits in the original trilogy that are very simple to find because they were made for, different military things or whatever. And some of that happened in the prequels as well. One of my favorites, just turn to it. Here is Han Solo's trench coat from Return of the Jedi, which was essentially a lab coat that was, like a doctor's lab coat that was tie-dyed, tie-dyed green and brown and camouflage colors. So really fantastic book, both this one and Trisha Bigger costumes of the prequel era, which was a little bit more detailed because then they were really they had more budget, they were coming out with some pretty cool stuff. All right, that's number 7. So going down to number 6, I'm going to do a lot of these. Okay, this one's kind of a cheat. It's a book. It counts. Okay, so there's a reason I'm called Darth Tuba. Okay, Darth Tuba is kind of a double naming, right? Obviously, Darth referring to Star Wars, Tuba referring to my music background, and yes, those who know me know that I'm a music educator and a musician, and this does count as a book. This is my Star Wars trilogy. This is if you can see, the special edition. This is the music book from the Star Wars trilogy. It's piano reduction parts for about a dozen pieces of music that from all 3 of the original trilogy. This also is a representative book. I have another book from pretty much every movie that has come out since. I have my own book for them, and it is a really cool part of my book collection because it serves 2 purposes. I mean, a lot of times they come with like little picturesque moments like this, right? But they also include lots of music. And yeah, music is a language. Music is a universal language. So I do use this, and it does count as a book. So anybody who wants to fight me on that, be my guest. You will lose. Right? Because this is a fantastic book. A lot of times they even come with little tidbits about the pieces. Obviously all this is written by John Williams, but reduced for piano. But there are all sorts of music books out there that you can get. So that's pretty cool. All right, let's move on to number 5. This is a more newer book, but this does kind of fall into more storytelling, right? And less about, in-universe storytelling. This is Star Wars from a certain point of view. And again, I'm going to make this a representative book of, right now, 2, Star Wars from a certain point of view and Empire Strikes Back a certain point of view. And as you can see on the side, these are all the authors that contribute to this. Many of which are authors that are famous for writing Star Wars books, but some are actually people that you might not realize, like Pablo Hidalgo, who works at Lucasfilm. Trying to find if there's any other ones that you would, I believe Ashley Eckstein, Gary Whitta, Will Wheaton, not one in our Star Wars universe, he's more of a Trek guy, but there you go. So these are stories told by different ancillary characters that you see going throughout the movie, and from their point of view, what was going on. It's a really interesting story. It's kind of reminiscent of the Star Wars Tales, or Tales from Jabba's Palace, Tales of the Bounty Hunters, Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina. These are one-off little stories about other people around. Very cool. Being that it's a newer book, it does include and tends to encompass not just the original trilogy, but also the prequel trilogy, also the sequel trilogy, and even some of the newer books. I know Empire Strikes Back, there were things that I was actually hearing getting referenced to Mandalorian. So pretty cool stuff there. All right, number 4. 4, 3, 2, 1. Right. This is a book that's more recent. This is actually a crowdsourced book called A New Proof. And it is essentially a Kenner Star Wars packaging design book by Matthias Rendall, edited by Gus Lopez, another big-time Star Wars collector. It has a really great setup of talking about the proofs that were made for the Star Wars action figures. Okay, and that is a whole other collecting genre in and of itself. I do not collect proofs, so but I'm interested in them. So this actual setup is pretty good, and it's just so cool and so fantastic about it. So a great resource. All right, so good stuff. All right, number 3. All right, this one's a little older. I kind of went out of order here, but this is again another more of a, I would say, not worldwide known. This is kind of one. This is one I think I picked up at a Star Wars convention, and I think they might have just sold them there. This was Star Wars Super Collector's Wish Book, Identifications and Values. Now, Identifications and Values, guys, they change the minute the book gets published. So I don't use it for that, but it is a great resource for all of the different types of collections that came out. Now, it starts, obviously, they focus a lot about the vintage collection, but then it goes into, remember, this book came out in the mid-90s, right? So there was a lot of collecting. I'm trying to give you the exact thing here. 2002. So by 2002, that was like 7 or 8 years of collecting. There's a lot to unpack here. And the thing is, this is only one. They have made several editions. They made a 2nd edition, a 3rd edition, a 4th edition. I got up through, I think, 5 editions. I haven't kept collecting because now, since then, the internet has become a great resource to gather up all the different types. But this was early on kind of a great way to gather pictures and, you know, approximate values of different things, especially things that were not available in this country, things available in other countries. It was pretty comprehensive. So I think you can still get them. It's Jeffrey T. Carlton is the composer. I'm in my music mode. Is the author, and again, there've been many versions of them. So good job with that. Now we have number 2, more recent. The Man Who Shot Luke Skywalker, Kenner Star Wars Photography, 1980 to 1982. This is actually an amazing book of photos by the photographer who did all of the Empire and Jedi photos, and it has some great reproductions of those photos. Some phenomenal stuff. This was actually a crowdsourced book, and I do believe they're doing another one more recently, but this one I absolutely love. It's such a fantastic resource, and I cannot get enough of this kind of stuff. I really jumped more into the more vintage collecting craze, and because I have a lot of vintage loose stuff that I had as a child. So this is a great little resource for that. So we've been going along here for about 15 minutes. That was my 9 books. Oh wait, I need a 10th. All right, so my number 1. Well, this one is going to take a little bit of doing. So this one doesn't just win among my favorites. It is the biggest book I own. It is Star Wars Blueprints. These are actual photocopies, or I should say photostatic printouts of all of the different. It's a little bit slightly smaller book. This is all of the blueprints used in the making of the original Star Wars movies. So just to give you an example, okay, you can see here, and again, try not to. These are blueprints of sets, blueprints of ships, any kind of set. Okay, it is a fantastic world. Look into the world of movie making, and it is such a cool thing. I do regret the size of the book. It makes it very difficult to store, very difficult to display. I do believe, however, that they have since come up with a more table-sized books, similar to the ones that I have shown you earlier. So that's really cool. But it is a fantastic thing to collect, to have a nice in one area, all of the different types of blueprints. So anybody who's into that type of just understanding how movies are made and the way they do them, just fantastic. So those are my 10. Those are my 10 books, and I want to thank Garrett for giving me the opportunity to share this with you. If you like what you see here and you want to see more, check out Darth Tuba's Star Wars Unboxing Show on YouTube. And to Garrett, I want to say thanks again for giving me this opportunity, and I wish you well on all of your publishing ventures, and I hope to work with you again soon. Thank you guys very much, and until next time, may the Force and the books be with you.
Hey, if you'd like to connect with Will's channel, the link for his Star Wars unboxing videos can be found in the video description. And if you're curious about any Star Wars books that I like, I've got a new review of Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars, the official tie-in to the Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games, which has been loaded up over on Patreon. Hey, thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications on new videos. You can support the channel on Patreon and the merch store. Those links can be found down in the video description. Make sure to tune in next week for the May author interview featuring romance author Thea Landon. See ya. Oh, ow, that's really painful. Medic!